Welcome into the Roll Jays podcast, powered by Big East Energy and sponsored by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. We have the Huss Bus with us. The new head coach in waiting, Alan Huss, is going to join us. It's the Roll Jays podcast.
Heads up, it's the Roll Jays podcast, the voice of the Creighton basketball fan. With your hosts, Jimmy Allen, Alex Drake, and Casey Matthews. Join the crew and meet CU players, coaches, and a whole lot more. Now, the Roll Jays podcast. Here's Jimmy Allen.
Welcome into the Roll Jays podcast. Jimmy Allen, Casey Matthews, Alex Drake, now joined by Alan Huss, the head coach in waiting, returning to Creighton. Coach, let us be the first to welcome you back to Omaha, and thanks for doing this with us.
Yeah, you're not first. There's been a few things, I think, but glad to be here. Thanks a lot.
Well, we'll take all the credit for it, though, if that's all right with you, Coach. Obviously, before we get into your decision on coming back, can you just kind of recap what it was like for you to be the head coach at High Point, and why was it the right time to make this decision?
I don't know if there's ever a right time, especially the way things are now in collegiate sports. You know, you look around. Roster continuity, culture continuity, all those things are kind of a thing of the past a lot of places. I think the idea here is to hopefully have some kind of carryover continuity, whenever the time is that Mac decides to move on. And, I think it's interesting that, we were able to, at some level, kind of replicate what we were doing here down at High Point. A lot of it worked. The beautiful thing about being in the Big South is a lot of times you make mistakes and only your friends and family see them. So it's been a great learning experience. We had a lot of fun down there. The university is fantastic, and we'll really miss it.
Yeah, Coach, I remember us talking before you left in the hotel in the NCAA tournament, and how excited you were. I think I knew how good of a job you were going to go into. And what a great campus and facilities. I mean, everything is awesome there. But I think you led me into my question, which is, like, if you think back to that time, like as you were going there, what's something you thought you knew about being a head coach that, looking back now, you're like, man, that was different than I expected, and that you can kind of carry over here, with the Jays?
My deal was a little bit different because I was a high school basketball coach for 11 years. So, I'd actually been an assistant coach less time in my coaching career than I had been a head coach, albeit at a different level. So, what I wasn't ready for was the pivot into the transfer portal and the NIL world, and just how intertwined that would become, even at the Big South level, at the mid-major level at college basketball. It was really an interesting time. We had a sign in my office that said CEO, which means change equals opportunity. And, we felt like if we could capture, capture an advantage there and identify an advantage, and then just kind of pounce on that advantage, we could really jump up quickly. And I think that's exactly what we were able to do. So, what I didn't know is everything, just how crazy this world was going to change. And, you think you're prepared, but I don't know that anybody's prepared at any level, even guys that have done this job for 2 and 3 decades. That it's changing so rapidly, and sometimes midstream and mid-season. So it's just the ability to adapt and come up with new creative ways to stay ahead of the change is paramount to success.
Coach, talking about staying ahead and getting creative there, we've seen some household names in this industry retire in recent years. Some of them mid-season, like you said. What are some things that you picked up at High Point that helps you stay creative and kind of ahead of the curve as best you can in the evolution of the sport?
Well, that's the thing with me. I know that I'm not smart enough to do it just like everyone else. So I've got to try to find an advantage and be a little bit outside the box, because if it just comes down to trying to hedge a ball screen or block out better than the other team, I don't like my chances. Somebody else will do a better job at that. That's a little more intelligent than I am. So what I do is I try to take a step back, zoom out, and look for areas where we can have a strategic advantage. And then, like any person, once you find your strategic advantage, you just try to leverage it. And that's, I think, what we were able to do there. I think that's what translates to Creighton. We certainly have some strategic advantages. And like every job in college basketball, you got advantages and you got disadvantages. One thing we don't have here that we had at High Point was the kind of geographic advantage. There's so many players built into your breadbasket at a place like High Point. You can go get a barbecue sandwich on a Sunday and run into a top 50 player that lives down the street. Yeah, obviously that doesn't happen all that often in Omaha. And so, we've got to lean into our advantages, our fan base, our support, our style of play, our facilities, our university, and we got to minimize the geographic stuff and find guys that want to be here and want to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
We talked about this on yesterday's episode, but over the last couple of years, obviously Ryan Miller was quarterback in the offense and quarterback in the defense at different points. Do you know what your role is going to be defined as on the staff this upcoming season?
I don't know exactly. I did some offensive stuff before I got back. I'll just do whatever Mac tells me to do. Maybe carry some bags.
Did you?
I'll carry the bags into the game maybe, and fill up some water bottles and stay out of the way.
Huss, as always, as I expected, you're gonna sell yourself short, which is part of why we love you. But you're a lot smarter than you're giving yourself credit for. But talking style of play, your team. I mean, I know you like to play fast, and you were always very analytical. When you were here, is there anything you think is fundamentally different in the way that you want to run a team versus Coach Mack that you think you can bring to the table? Obviously, he's the head coach. I get that. But in conversations that you can maybe integrate into the program now while you both are still here?
I mean, honestly, strategically, we do the same things. We played drop defense. We tried to bend, not break on the defensive side of the basketball. We got a little bit more aggressive at times because we had some better athletes relative to our competition. Went to the offensive glass a little bit more, but I mean, the style of play is largely dictated by the players you're able to attract to your program. And as long as we kind of stay, hyper focused on guys that can dribble, pass, shoot, and think, then the style of plays to a certain extent is dictated to you. And so I don't see a huge deviation on that side of things. The key for me is just to bring value in that recruiting space, find guys that fit Creighton and find guys that fit Coach Mack.
Coach, talking about the players that you attract, you had, not an empty cover, but you lost a lot this year at Creighton with Ryan Kalkbrenner, Stephen Ashworth, and Jemiah Neal. But then you've turned around and not necessarily upgraded, but you've replenished to some degree. Obviously, Ryan Kalkbrenner is a big hole. What do you see on film from the transfers that Creighton has signed so far? And have you had a lot of chance to talk with those guys and go over their film?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're cautiously optimistic about moving forward. I think to be any more confident than that would probably be a mistake in this day and age. But I think we feel like we've got pieces that, are you gonna replace those three guys? Absolutely not. They're each in their own right irreplaceable. But you're talking about a group of guys that's coming in that I think fits culturally. That the guys that can score in some different ways. You've got maybe in some ways a different but a just as effective an offensive player in Freeman that can play out of some different things that Kalk couldn't do. So we'll try to accentuate their strengths. We'll try to minimize their weaknesses, and Dix and Graves and Swartz. Like we've got guys that are really, I think, high character guys firstly, and guys that can all dribble, pass, shoot, and think. And when you get that, then it's kind of get them here in the summer and let it rip, and it'll start to kind of work itself out.
We take questions on the show from fans, and maybe our biggest fan wanted us to ask, was your biggest point in coming back to Creighton because you missed Trey Ziegler so much?
Absolutely. Did Trey ask that question? Is he the biggest fan?
He may or may not have. I cannot confirm nor deny that.
It's funny. You have a guy like Trey. Trey did so many things for me at High Point, and when he's on your staff that he's important, but oftentimes you don't realize how important and how many ways someone impacts your program until they're not there anymore. And that was certainly the case with Trey when he left High Point. We were in a world of hurt because he was doing a lot of things that he just never told anybody about, and taking care of guys, managing relationships, and it's going to be awesome to be reunited with him.
That's super cool for you to say that, Huss. Can you talk even more maybe about your staff that you left behind there? I know it's a Creighton podcast, but I also know the way you handled this situation from the outside. I have tremendous respect because I know you care so much about your staff there and that they were okay, and now they are. And I give you all the credit for that. Can you just talk about them and why they're so special to you?
Yeah, that was the final sticking point in this deal was, on my staff there, I had 4 guys that had babies that are under a year old. I think 3 of them under 7 months old. And so one of them's Antoine Young, who, obviously former Blue Jay, but it's got a little baby girl. And, it's difficult when you start looking at these things, and potentially you have the chance to move. Typically the staff, it's great for everyone. But in this particular case, it didn't come with an opportunity for an entire staff to come with me. And it's difficult when you kind of lay the foundation brick by brick with someone. They're along with you for all the highs, the lows, and steady the course on many occasions when we could have deviated onto the wrong path. It's tough to think about leaving those guys behind. I think we're really fortunate. We had a pretty intentional plan with the way we set Flynn up to get that job. And I'm thrilled that we're going to have the opportunity to have that thing continue rolling forward. And I know this, like Flynn's really capable. He'll do a phenomenal job there, and those guys will continue to grow.
Coach, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I kind of want to go back to it just because I know a lot of people in that world that would like to make similar jumps that you made. What's the hardest part about going from the high school ranks to getting not just a college job, but a major college assistant job? And like, what are some things that the high school coaches don't know that they don't know yet?
Gosh, I mean, I get asked this a lot because I had a very kind of nonlinear path to the place I'm sitting. And as I look back, the beautiful thing about this business is you never have time to really think deep and into these deep, these deep circles or these deep dives into kind of your past. You're always kind of task oriented and moving on to the next thing. And so there's not a whole lot of time to reminisce, but when I have a minute and it catches me, I just kind of laugh. I still see myself as a guy that should be on the high school sideline. Or maybe the AAU sideline. I did a lot of both of that. Coached some club basketball, coached some high school basketball. I was always working at camp. This thing started off as a hobby for me, just something to do on the side. And even when I was having a little bit of success at the high school level as a head coach, it wasn't really something I ever thought about doing was jumping over here. I really liked what I did. I liked working with talented players at the high school level. I just kind of thought that was my niche. We had a really nice life, especially in Northwest Indiana. My wife and I loved it there. We loved the way our kids were growing up. We loved kind of working and living in the boarding school world. And, we were never looking for this. So there was the idea that there was some intentional plan that was in the back of my head would just be a blatant lie because there wasn't. My plan was to try to win the next high school game and win the next AAU game and do a good job where I was. And, I've been really fortunate, God's opened up some doors for me, and I look back and I just laugh. Sometimes I wonder how the heck I got here. It certainly wasn't intentional. And, the number one thing is I can tell you is I've been unbelievably lucky and blessed.
It's the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing, Pyramid Contractors. We're catching up the associate head coach, Alan Huss, here on the podcast. Coach, we talked about this yesterday. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. You just mentioned that when you're in the thick of things, you don't really get the chance to reminisce and look deep into things, but you get the opportunity for the next year or two to coach alongside Greg McDermott, knowing that this is on a limited basis. Can you appreciate that in this moment?
Yeah, I probably won't appreciate it when he tells me I'm an idiot, which that's coming soon. But no, I mean, it's fun because now we can have a little bit of a dialogue, and hopefully I can bring a few ideas to tweak things. But I mean, don't get it twisted. Like we were Diet Creighton down there. That's what we were. Like
sure.
We were doing the best we could to recreate what he's doing. It's not like I had these great plans. I mean, you look at his coaching tree and the success. It's not like any of them are doing anything different than what he taught us. We were doing our best to just recreate the same thing down there.
You could thank Casey for all your great accolades being on the side of the podcast today, by the way. So if any of that's wrong, blame him.
It better not be wrong, because if it's wrong, then we got to talk to Wikipedia. But
the problem is I'm the author, so I just boosted everything by 20%. So we're
That's
good.
he texted me. He texted me all
had
this
the
stuff,
national
guys.
championship next to him last year. That makes sense.
He texted me all this stuff.
Put that in.
Coach, one thing I would say about you is I feel like you're always looking for the next thing, like the next edge that you can get, whether that's analytics. We've had a lot of conversations about analytics and how much that drives some of your decision making. When NIL really first started, I really believe you were one of the first to really just go all in and really understand. A lot of people couldn't understand it yet, and it gave Creighton an advantage. What would you say is maybe something that when people like myself, dummies that just talk about hoops and talk about college sports, that we don't look at enough and don't talk about enough that you see coming or changing?
I mean, I don't know exactly where it's going to change. I mean, I'd be if I did it, we wouldn't be on this podcast right now if I knew it was going to happen. I'd be hard at work trying to get ahead. The NIL thing was pretty simple to me. Obviously, it wasn't to some other people, and we absolutely gained an edge there. But here's the thing that people don't talk about. Like, I had some crazy ideas. Mac is also a guy that's been doing this for however many years, 30 years or whatever, and he was open-minded enough to listen to me. And you start talking about why guys find success, why he's been able to rebrand his offensive, defensive approaches through different players, different eras, why it always works. It's a willingness to listen to other people in the room. And then, obviously the intelligence and discernment to be able to throw out the bad stuff, because I've certainly threw him some bad ideas over time too, and to be able to grab the ones that really work. I think the next step is going to be like, all right, we all kind of know where this is now. At some point, we're pivoting into an employee model. I think there's going to be some kind of schism in this in major college basketball. It's just positioning ourselves from a brand standpoint that when the next set of regulation comes, we are in position to, because I think it's going to get more regulated at some point whenever they go to this employment model. And, if it comes along with some kind of antitrust protection or whatever the case may be, there's a new set of rules that's going to enter into this space at some point. But as long as it's the wild, wild west, we need to be able to rip, run, and keep up with the people in that are making the rules. And that's, make no mistake about it, that's the Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten. So we need to keep swinging away and stay in the space. And when they rewrite the rules to benefit themselves, we need to be ready to pivot and make sure we can find our little window and our little alley and make sure that we don't get left behind.
I want to ask on that point, because this is something we've discussed on my radio show a ton, that the Big East is kind of in a unique situation where the pros are that they don't have the football problem, but the cons are we don't have the football money either. Was that part of the reason behind wanting to come back to Creighton as well, other than obviously your love of Omaha, was the fact that, hey, it's a school that we don't have to worry about the football dynamic part of it?
I think in the short term, that's a real thing. That wasn't a driving decider in my situation. I mean, my deal is this: I met my wife here. I love Creighton. I would have considered this at one place. I had a number of places I could have gone. A dozen people in the past year have tried to get me to go to this place or that place, and I wouldn't have even considered this for anyone else besides Coach Mack and Creighton. I love this place. It's helped me. It's helped me in my life. It's made me into the man I am, and this place is special to me, and that's why I'm here. As far as the Big East stuff, I think you're onto something. I think there's a slight advantage in some ways. There's also a major disadvantage. If you can come up with the finances, actually getting it to the players, and you have a little bit of an advantage there. The challenge is, if you just look at the numbers of it, this deal is growing. It's $22.7 million right now, and it's growing by 4% annually. In addition to that, there's a look-in period every 24 months, and the only people that are looking in are the SEC and the Big Ten. Maybe the Big 12's peering around the corner, but those two are looking around, and they're going to keep making those numbers go up. And so it's going to be a challenge for people outside of those two leagues that don't have the massive media rights contracts to keep up. And we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to get outside the box, and I'll certainly spend a little bit of my time here, or maybe a great deal of it, trying to make sure that we come up with creative solutions to those problems.
Coach, you talked about Mac and his willingness to listen to ideas, hear them all out. In your experience, is that something that just sets him apart from other coaches? I mean, we've given him a ton of flowers here on this podcast, but it just seems like his coaches, when they leave and take off, they do better than a lot of other programs in terms of just finding immediate success.
Yeah, I mean, his flexibility, willingness to learn, obviously those things make him great, but he really empowers assistant coaches. Like we get a chance to really put our hands on players and work with them. And, you get a lot of responsibility when you're assistant for Coach Mack. And he's always kind of looking over your shoulder and making sure you're not doing anything, really, really awful. But, he's always there, and he's really letting you make mistakes. And, especially when you start doing the offensive side of the ball with him, it's, talk about a nerve-wracking situation. I still remember my first week, I'm like running a drill and in offensive basketball at Creighton University, and Mac is watching it. I'm just like, this guy probably thinks I'm the biggest idiot of all time. And you're worried about, like, am I doing this to the standard, right? And I think it helps you improve. But just the way he empowers his people, that's why I think success is happening all throughout his coaching tree.
Huss, I'm going to speak for us and for all the Creighton fans that we're really excited to have you back, and excited that we know the program is in great hands moving forward. And what I want to know from you, this is very important, very serious, is coming back to Omaha, what's the one restaurant that you are excited, and we'll let you go after this, so you're really excited to get back here and get back to that restaurant?
Well, I've already been to Barrett's, so
that didn't take long.
I made it to day one before I got myself into Barrett's. I don't know. There's so many places to eat here. I lived it right by St. Robert's before, and it was always difficult for me to drive past Shucks. I probably did that about twice a week,
Sure.
sometimes 3 times a week. I'm guessing if I end up in that same area, it'll probably be the same deal. I'm a creature of habit.
Awesome.
Coach, we appreciate your time. Again, we're happy to be obviously clearing away the very first people to ever welcome you back to Omaha. We will keep that claim to fame for as long as we can. But, Coach, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
That's the new head coach in waiting, Alan Huss. Join us here on the Roll Jays podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to the Big East Energy to keep up to date on all podcasts like this and some more of Casey Matthews' great intros here on the Roll Jays podcast. Thanks for joining us.